I think that there's sometimes a combination of things. I think that we built this culture around being very data-driven since the get-go. When we started 4.5 years ago, that was a core part of what we were going to do. So when we onboarded and recruited the team, they understood this. When we developed the team, they understood this. So when it comes to addressing problems or forming specific initiatives, they know that as a company holistically, we're thinking about, well, what does the data say? How can we use data to support a decision? And sometimes we're not going to have the entire answer. There are occasionally when we would go back and, hey, let's look at it a different way now. Or there's occasionally where this is the best data we have, but we need to move quickly. So we can't just wait for 3 months to make a decision. We need to do the best we can with the data we have, and then have all that in place to make those decisions and move forward, I would say.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? When you think about your culture, would you say that you're a data-driven culture? Would you say that your people understand how to research and find out what they really need to be focused on next? Well, being a data-driven culture means people understand that we can't just always operate from our gut instinct. Gut is important, and it's good to trust your gut, but you also want to be able to back it up with numbers, because numbers don't lie. When you think about how your business is moving forward, you may not have as much interest in numbers as you could, or maybe you have a lot of interest in numbers. The key is to train your employees, if you want to have a data-driven culture, to look at the numbers first before they come to you with their problems. And this would be really helpful because it will help you sharpen exactly the direction you're going to go, how we handle certain problems, how do we improve our campaigns, how do we improve our operations, whatever it is you're focused on will be improved with being a data-driven culture. Our guest today is the co-founder of Sprinly. They're a plant-based meal service, and we're talking with Ray Lui. Ray will share with you some insights behind why they grew so fast. They were number 113 on the Inc. list in 2020, means they grew really fast. What we talk about today is, what does a data-driven culture look like? What are some of the core elements of that data-driven culture? What does it look like in our meetings? What does it look like in leadership? And how do they hire people and really create a place where numbers are given a lot of emphasis so that it guides the company forward? All that in this episode with Ray. Before we get there, I want to kind of remind you that if you are a leader that wants to be more visionary, more strategic even, that you've got to take the time for it. And one of the things I would love to do is offer you my services to sit down with you and look at where you're spending your time, where there's opportunity for you to create more time to be the visionary leader that you want to. I can look over your shoulder. I can do this. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com/time. You'll find some free resources there, but you'll also find a free training that will help you really take it to the next level. Inside that training, it'll give you some insight of what you could be doing to be a more visionary leader, be more strategic. And all you have to do is go to genehammett.com/time. When you think about growth and you think about leadership, make sure you keep thinking about Grow Think Tank. Now here's the interview with Ray. Ray, how are you?
I'm doing great. Great to meet you, Gene.
It's fantastic to have you on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely excited to be here. I'm excited for the conversation.
Well, I would love for you to let our audience know what is Sprinly and can give us some context to what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, of course. So Sprinly, we're an organic plant-based meal delivery e-commerce brand, and our entire mission is around helping our society eat more vegetables and really change the way people think about healthy eating by offering something honestly healthy. We feel that when we look at the health of our society and really the biggest healthful impact possible, it really comes down to one thing, and that is offering more vegetables in a more convenient, approachable way so that people could really enjoy the meals. And I think that there's a lot of miseducation about what is and isn't healthy these days. But the core of it is, only about 3% of us are getting enough dietary fiber that come from vegetables. So we're working hard as a team to really change that.
I can tell you that my trainer put me onto a vegetarian thing, and I felt lost. I was so used to what I've been eating, and the week before I did a completely juice diet, and that was much easier because I would just grab the juice. But when they said go plant-based, it was hard. So I could see how a meal service around this, for those that really want to understand this, to eat more vegetables. And I'm going to say this because I could look at the pictures. It looks like it's delicious.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people that, try Sprinly or just try plant-based for the first time, they're wondering like what that actually is. And, it's one of those things that we've done in-house. We make everything in-house from scratch. And we want to make sure that it's approachable for people across all different diets. So serving omnivores, pescatarians, vegans, vegetarians. We're very happy to, be able to make meals that are approachable to all types of different diets to really open people's minds how delicious and healthy, plant-based can be.
Well, I absolutely love it. So we had you here, Ray, because my team does research on the founders and CEOs of fast growth companies. And one of the things that came out in our conversations with you and your team is around the need for focus and the right kind of being data driven as an organization. Those two things are quite different. So how do they fit together as it relates to the growth of your company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, when it comes to focus, when starting any business, the odds are somewhat stacked against you, right? And, when it comes to really building a business, we want to make sure that we're using focus and using data to really drive a successful growth and grow quickly, but then also making sure that it's growing sustainably as well. So, growing up myself, when it came to focus, being disciplined, being data driven, all that stuff, I worked incredibly hard at school, being disciplined. I played football, was captain of the track, captain of the wrestling team, very disciplined along the way there. But, I really feel that when it comes to translating that focus, discipline, and using data to drive decisions in the business, what it comes down to is being able to understand what is working, what isn't working. And in a market as big as food, and in something in food, plant-based, growing as rapidly as it is, there's all these different opportunities that arise. So, we need to be smart about when to say yes, when to say no to certain opportunities, whether it is different distribution channels that arise, people reaching out and companies reaching out about partnerships. Customers are constantly asking about launching new product lines or serving specific ingredients in our meals, just selling them our boneless beef burger or selling them our plant balls, things of that nature. We need to make sure we look back at the data. It doesn't make sense to really invest in this area when these opportunities arise and really understand, when it comes to focus, we need to make sure that time is our valuable asset. So as we think about what to do, what opportunities arise, looking at the data and being smart about that is what's driving how we're able to continue to grow quickly and really grow in a smart way too. So I think that's how we sort of combine that data and focus to make sure that we're making best use of our time. If you happen to be listening to this episode on your phone, then I want to remind you that we have free content over there on YouTube. Just go to genehammett.com/YouTube. There's some content there in video format, of course, that you can only get on YouTube. And if you go there to subscribe, you'll get some insights around being a visionary leader that your company needs to survive. Again, go to genehammett.com/YouTube. So a lot of companies would say they're data driven. I'm kind of curious, what would we see inside of your meetings or inside of your conversations that would really tell us that data is such an important piece to the growth of the company? Yeah, I think that when it comes to being data driven, to give you a few examples, when we're looking at marketing and reaching out to new customers, new channels, things of that nature, instead of having a brainstorm session around, hey, let's put our budget in different allocations, we ask the question, well, what is driving the fastest payback period? What is driving the longest lifetime value of these customers? And when people come to our site, we know how they're getting to our site. We know how long those customers are staying on for when they make that purchase. And we do that by really analyzing all the data that we have with different tools, but also some proprietary models we built in-house in different softwares and things like that to make sure that when we are driving our growth, we know where we allocate our spend. And by using that data, it allows us to do it in a very sustainable way as well. And I think on top of that, by being data-driven in that sense, we're able to also understand, things like people who are not looking to lose weight actually stay on longer. People who are interested in sports tend to order more meals over time. And knowing those different data points, looking at the surveys, looking at the data, we're able to really be thoughtful with how we change our brand messaging, how we change our targeting, and how we adjust all of that based on channel and understand how all that works together holistically as well. Is a lot of this data in-house through the teams and the technologies that you have put together, or do you go outside to get data too? So we do all of it basically in-house, I would say. When it comes to understanding all these different components, it's a combination of talking to customers, doing customer surveys, but then looking at the data that comes through, our website and all the software and tools that we use in-house. So we're not going out buying different data sources and information about customers or things like that. We're really the people coming to our site and understand what's working and then really iterating and A/B testing on a constant rapid pace to continue learning more.
Ray, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit here because we've been talking about this concept of being data
Yeah.
driven. Now, I want to look at you as a leader. When you are, working with your team members, your executive team, and anybody else that you're working with on trying to figure out a problem, are you encouraging them to bring you the data to that problem, or do you have to send them back consistently to go get the data, or is it something else that we haven't put a spotlight on?
And that's an interesting question. I think that there's sometimes a combination of things. I think that we built this culture around being very data driven since the get-go. When we started 4.5 years ago, that was a core part of what we were going to do. So when we onboarded and recruited the team, they understood this. When we developed the team, they understood this. So when it comes to addressing problems or performing specific initiatives, they know that as a company holistically, we're thinking about, well, what does the data say? How can we use data to support a decision? And sometimes we're not going to have the entire answer. There are occasionally when we will go back and, hey, let's look at it a different way now. Or there's occasionally where this is the best data that we have, but we need to move quickly. So we can't just wait for 3 months to make a decision. We need to do the best that we can with the data we have, and then have all that in place and make those decisions and move forward, I would say.
Now, hold on for a second. Ray just talked about creating a culture of being data-driven. Well, all this centers around the values of the company. And if you have those values front and center, then you can actually recruit people who see the power in data. If you want a data-driven culture, you want to make sure that you are having questions, allow you to understand, is this person willing to go find the data? They're willing to create the necessary systems in place to collect the data, and are they willing to use it to make the best decisions? If being data-driven is important to you, you want to make sure it's a part of the values, not just something that you put on the wall, but actually something that you live by and you recruit by and lead by. Back to Ray. Now, I know a lot of leaders pride themselves in having a gut feeling for this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you are able to tune into with the data, or do you just trust the data and kind of just move from there?
Great question. I will always lean on data first. Data doesn't lie. So I will lean on it first instead of going with a gut instinct. But again, there are times where you have only so much data. So then you have to bring your intuition into play, bounce ideas from different perspectives of people on your team, and really make a right decision for what's best for the team overall. So definitely lean on the data more, I would say.
This, I think, is related to what we're talking about, but we'll see where it goes. Is being data-driven a part of your values as a company?
Yeah. So, in terms of being data-driven in terms of values, one of the things that we have in terms of core value is, we have incredibly high standards as a team. We have sound judgment. That's a big core value for us. And another one is like continuous improvement. So when it comes to all that combined, I think data really drives a lot of that. We use a sound judgment that comes into play when we don't have all the data in place, but also part of sound judgment is using the data to drive that decision making. And by having and being data driven, continuous improvement is how we continue getting better by looking at the data, tracking our metrics, and then seeing how do we get better from here. And then that really high, incredible standard bar is a thing that we're always trying to reach as a team. And it's always a work in progress. But I think that's a big part of how we make sure we differentiate our business as well to continue performing at a higher level.
I found that a lot of the fast growth companies put a lot of emphasis on core values, not just as something that they would have on a corporate wall or somewhere, but they really live by them day in and day out. Is that something we would see across your organization? Is the truly living the values?
Definitely. Before we even started the business, Mary and I put down our core values on paper, and we thought that was super important because we wanted us to be on the same page of what we're building and what we feel is important. But two, we need to make sure we have that before we even started thinking about recruiting a team and building a team, because the core values is what really drives how we recruit and really drives how we develop the team and measure their performance as well. So it's definitely incredibly important. It Sprinly has been since the very beginning. And we definitely don't see that changing at all.
Well, I want to kind of go a little bit deeper with all this, Ray, and really keep the spotlight on you
Yeah.
in your journey of leading this company through fast growth. You've probably had some mistakes. Does one stand out as teaching you a lesson that you could share with us today that you feel comfortable opening up?
Yeah, no, I'm sure that I've run into many mistakes in the path to growing and building Sprinly. You know, we bring up like one specific mistake. I would say that, when we first got started, we probably waited too long to start hiring people onto the team. Mary and we've always been very scrappy. We still are very scrappy. We always will be. But when we first started, I called almost 100 different kitchens in the area to see where we can kind of, pay partial rent to use our kitchen in the middle of the night at midnight, 1 a.m. to prepare the meals to really start launching this thing. Because we launched on a very limited savings. But then at the same time, Mary and I were doing everything. We were building the website, doing the finance, doing the legal work to get incorporated. We were actually developing the recipes, preparing the meals in the middle of the night, and delivering it. So we were doing everything end to end, and now taking customer service calls at 2 a.m. when people would call randomly. And it's one of those things where we wanted to make sure we did that. So we understood every part of the role in order to really understand how to build the team. But because we were doing all of that, and because we're continuing to grow, being data driven, running marketing campaigns, things started to roll quickly. And pretty soon we saw that, about 6 months into starting Sprinly, we were sold out for 2 months after our marketing campaign. And it was one of those things where we were like, whoa, we got to actually put a pause on this. And it's one of those things where, we should have hired faster at that point. And we didn't do that because we didn't know exactly the levers in the business. Since then, we've been able to really understand where are the levers of growth in this business, and how do we forecast out not only the growth but the people that we need to be hiring. So I think that's taught us a really good lesson in terms of who we need to hire, when we need to hire them, and really understanding also that in the early days, we need people on a team who are smart, great work ethic, driven, who could do a little bit of everything. But as we're scaling and scaling faster, this is when we need to start bringing on, certain individuals and roles where they have a lot of experience, so then we can scale faster and more efficiently. Also lucky for me, my parents opened a restaurant when they came here to this country. So they were able to help a little bit when we were sold out, and in the early days, helping cut the vegetables and all that stuff as well. So that was actually a big plus, and really appreciate that too.
Now, hold on for a second. Ray just said we should have hired faster. Now, I've seen a lot of companies make this mistake before. They really kill themselves because they want to control the process. They're not sure who to hire. And if they did hire people, that they wouldn't do it as well as they did. Well, here's the reality. If you want to grow your company, and I talk to a lot of companies that have 20 employees, 50 employees, 100 employees, 600 employees, thousands of employees, and every person that I talk to says we wouldn't be where we are if we didn't hire the right people. So it's not about you being scared to hire someone. It's about you learning to let go of the processes and knowing that building the team around you will allow you to grow even faster. I say this from experience because I run multiple companies. I coach a lot of companies that have had this same problem. And I just share with you this idea to really rethink about this, can we afford to hire someone? And maybe you already have 5 people or 10 people, but when you're listening to this podcast and really talking directly to you, if you feel overworked, then maybe it's time to look at hiring someone else. If you have any questions about why you should do that and what your next step is, sometimes I can sit down with a CEO and help them put up their finger on exactly what's going on and what their next step is. So if you want to do that, just go to genehammett.com and go to Start Your Journey, and you can book time with me to talk about what your next step is inside your journey of leadership. Now back to Ray. I want to look at one of the pieces that happens often with companies, and maybe you didn't have this problem, but I'm just kind of curious. When you were doing everything, and that's with your wife, right?
My fiance.
Yeah, fiance. Okay. So you were doing everything in the early stages, and then you started hiring people, and you started building these small teams, and now you're up to about 60 employees. What are the inflection points, from doing it all to where you are now that you've had to work through? Do you know what I mean by inflection points?
Yeah.
So what when you look back at it, what were those at a head count, what were you experiencing and how'd you get through it?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of different steps along the way, I would say. When we first started, again, it was Mary and myself, and my parents would help here and there. But as we started building out the team, we started having to understand how does each person really fit in the organization. So in the very beginning, we were hiring people on a team that were, preparing the meals, doing a little bit of everything from cutting veggies, washing dishes, to delivering meals alongside with us. And Mary and I were in there as well. We did that for over a year before we even stepped out of the kitchen. And it's one of those things, when we were in the kitchen, we were doing everything, everybody's doing the same thing. We have to kind of take a step back, because it was only after all the work that we were able to step back, get back to our computers, and really think about how do we really build this organization now. We're working 120-hour easy weeks, still work 100+ hours a week right now, but different things. And we needed to step back at that point and understand, all right, so now we have a core team that's preparing the meals. What else do we need to be hiring for, and how do we continue building the organization? And how do we start, stepping away a little bit, little by little, make sure this part of the organization is good. Now we need to focus on this part and this part, alongside of just growing the company quickly. So, that was definitely a key inflection point when we kind of made that transition from doing everything to delegating. But then, as we started building out more of the corporate team as well, then we started thinking about, well, how do we communicate knowledge across, different teams? How do we make sure that everyone knows what's going on and the important goals that we're setting and things of that nature? So then we start setting up different team structure, team meetings, org structure, and all that kind of stuff to make sure that we're communicating and really big on open communication across the team, but also making sure that nothing's falling through the cracks along the way as well. So I think there's a lot of steps along the way as we continue growing the team, and I think it's a work in progress that one core thing that we continue to work towards improving upon too.
Well, it's a never-ending process, as you'll realize, because
yeah,
what you're experiencing at 50, when you get to be 100 employees, it's a whole new realm of a focus on culture and team development and leadership skills and all those things. You'll get there soon.
Yeah.
Ray, I really appreciate you being here and sharing this story about, creating a data-driven culture and how that drives focus for the organization. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, definitely appreciate it. Definitely enjoyed it.
So this wraps up another fantastic episode with a founder of a fast growth company. One of the things that I think you can take away from this is you've got to be very intentional about the kind of company you are. It's not just about your business strategy and how you're going to get customers and how you're going to make a dollar, but the kind of company that you're talking about. Ray talked about a data-driven company and a culture and everything laid into place after that. And they had to figure out how to create this data. If you haven't created that kind of theme for your company, you want to make sure you actually go back and get really clear about it, because it will be something that connects everyone together. In your journey of leadership, you've got to continue to evolve, and some of these things you have to pick up and fix that weren't done in the first place. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. If you want to continue to evolve as a leader, make sure you check out the free resources that we have on genehammett.com. You can get an actual call with me if you want to talk about your business and leadership and create a plan for yourself. It's absolutely free, and I'd love to help you. When you think about growth and you think about leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.